Anowa is a powerful Ghanaian play written by Ama Ata Aidoo, one of Africa's leading feminist and post-colonial writers. Set in the late 19th century on the Gold Coast, the play tells the tragic story of a young woman named Anowa, who defies social expectations by marrying a man of her own choosing, Kofi Ako. The play is deeply rooted in Ghanaian oral traditions, incorporating local proverbs, storytelling structures, and spiritual beliefs. Yet it also tackles universal themes, including the oppression of women, the moral consequences of slavery, the struggle between tradition and modernity, and the search for identity in a changing world. 1. The prologue and the old couple. The play opens with a conversation between an old man and an old woman, who function as a kind of chorus or moral commentators. They debate the nature of the tragedy that is about to unfold, hinting that it could have been avoided. These two characters represent the collective voice of the community, offering traditional wisdom and sometimes contradictory views. Their presence sets the tone for a reflective, tragic narrative. 2. Anowa's defiance. Anowa, a young and spirited woman from the town of Yebi, shocks her parents by refusing to marry any of the suitors chosen for her. She desires a marriage based on love and partnership, not arranged customs. Against her parents' wishes, especially her mother Badua, Anowa chooses to marry Kofi Ako, a handsome and ambitious young trader. Badua is outraged, believing Anowa is cursed or possessed by spirits for her refusal to conform. Osam, Anowa's father, is more passive and philosophical, though still concerned. 3. Marriage and trade. Initially, Anowa and Kofi Ako enjoy a strong bond. They travel and trade together, selling goods along the coast. Anowa insists on being her husband's equal partner, not a passive wife. She refuses to behave like a proper woman, by traditional standards, doing domestic chores or staying behind while Kofi does business. However, as time passes, tension grows. Anowa's independent spirit begins to strain the marriage. Kofi Ako grows wealthier and more ambitious, but Anowa becomes increasingly disturbed by his moral compromises, particularly his involvement in the slave trade, a practice she finds abhorrent. 4. The crisis, childlessness and power struggle. A key turning point in the play is the couple's childlessness. In a culture that places great value on fertility and family legacy, their inability to have children becomes a source of pain, shame, and psychological stress. Kofi Ako begins to blame Anowa, while Anowa suspects he may have been castrated as a child, a suggestion that wounds Kofi's masculinity. Their personal pain intersects with broader societal issues. Kofi turns increasingly toward wealth and power, using slave labor to expand his business, while Anowa becomes isolated, spiritually unmoored, and emotionally unstable. 5. The tragic ending. In the final act, the marriage disintegrates. Anowa confronts Kofi about his moral emptiness, their failed dreams, and his betrayal of African values through his involvement in slavery. Kofi, unable to bear the confrontation and humiliation, commits suicide. Upon discovering his body, Anowa also takes her own life, completing the tragic arc. The old couple reappear, offering reflections on the tragic tale, arguing over blame and meaning, leaving the audience to draw their own conclusions. Analysis. 1. Central themes. A. Feminism and female autonomy. Anowa is one of the most independent and complex female characters in African literature. She defies the traditional roles of obedient daughter and submissive wife. Her desire for equality in marriage, her rejection of arranged marriage, and her moral stance against slavery all make her a proto-feminist figure. Yet the play does not idealize her. Her independence also brings pain, isolation, and ultimately, tragedy. B. Tradition versus individualism. The tension between traditional expectations and personal freedom is a major theme. Anowa's rejection of her mother's wishes represents a broader clash between old ways and new thinking. The community and the old couple represent conservative values. Anowa symbolizes rebellion and modernity. However, the play questions both sides. C. The tragedy of slavery. Slavery is a powerful moral and historical theme in the play. Kofi Ako's participation in the slave trade is portrayed not just as a betrayal of values but as a spiritual corruption. Anowa condemns it fiercely, highlighting Aidoo's critique of how Africans themselves were complicit in the slave economy. The play links material wealth to moral decay, warning that prosperity gained through exploitation comes at a heavy price. D. Masculinity and identity. Kofi Ako's character explores the fragility of masculinity in a changing world. Initially confident and progressive, he becomes insecure as Anowa asserts herself and as their childlessness grows more painful. Anowa's accusation that he may be impotent strikes at the heart of his identity. His eventual suicide suggests that he could not reconcile his traditional role as man, provider with his emotional weakness and moral failure. 2. Structure and style. 3-part structure. The play is divided into 3 acts, each marking a significant phase of Anowa's journey: marriage, tension, and tragedy. This classical tragic structure mirrors Greek drama, reinforcing the inevitability of fate. Chorus, old man and woman. The presence of the old couple gives the play a folkloric tone and a layer of communal wisdom. Their back-and-forth dialogue reflects the divided societal views on Anowa's choices. Language and dialogue. Aidoo blends English with Ghanaian idioms, proverbs, and storytelling techniques. This hybrid voice reflects the post-colonial reality of the characters, living in a world influenced by both African and Western values. 3. Symbolism. Anowa symbolizes the modern African woman, struggling to assert autonomy in a traditional society. She also represents a moral conscience, standing against slavery and hypocrisy. Kofi Ako symbolizes the African man seduced by Western capitalism and power. His downfall illustrates the cost of abandoning cultural and ethical roots. Childlessness serves as a metaphor for sterility and broken legacy, not just personal but cultural. A couple that betrays their values cannot create a future. The sea, often mentioned as a place of trade and danger. It represents both opportunity and loss, mirroring the colonial economy that brought both wealth and enslavement.